Hello everyone, and welcome to my Spiral Abyss guide for 4.3. We're going to begin with floor 11. For floor 11, there are plenty of enemies with elemental auras and shields, so for the first half, it is recommended you run a double Geo team, or you could run Taser. Make sure to choose the best blessing based on your teams. Now, for the first chamber, it is a monolith challenge, so take your time, don't worry about anything. Now, you have to just be careful with the Pyro Slimes. They do AoE pyro damage upon their death. Just take a quick note that these enemies do spawn clockwise, so you can predict where the next wave of enemies is going to be. The second half has Anemo Spectres and Hydro Mallards that prioritize the monolith, so take them out quickly. These enemies all do AoE damage upon their death, so don't let them even get close to the monolith. Those three Hydric Mimic Boars can be baited to charging towards you if you're close enough, but if you fail, they'll charge towards the monolith. For Chamber 2 first half, you'll find that all these enemies having shields, and you can use Anemo to swirl or Geo to crystallize to decrease these shields. The Crab and the Seahorse can trigger Overload against you, and the Ruin Graders can interrupt your attack, so just be wary of these specific enemies. For the second half of this chamber, it is a DPS check, so don't worry and just damage your way through. If you take too long though, these enemies can spread out and they will eat your time. And also, just remember to save your burst for the next floor. For every final chamber, you really want to start with your burst. For the first half of Chamber 3, you'll find that these two mechas will face you. Both of these mechas are Numa aligned, so Lucia attacks can briefly disable them. You should prioritize going after the Annihilation mech, as it can summon another mech as well and do its combo attack against you. Do note that these mechas will and can trigger Overload against you, which will cause your characters to be thrown away if you're not careful. For the second half of Chamber 3, this boss has large resistance. Triggering the boss with Electro or Dendro reactions will make these resistances disappear though. This boss also has attacks that can stagger your characters, and large AoE attacks, and can dash away from you. Feel free to reset, this boss is very RNG based. We finally reached floor 12, and for the first halves for this floor at least, these enemies are painful and are bosses that require good single target burst damage to defeat them. For the first half, it is recommended you run double Geo, Hyperbloom, Vaporize, or Radiant National. Do note that Hydra will be at a severe disadvantage when arriving at the final chamber of this floor. The next half has Geo-immune enemies and Electro-immune enemies. Vaporize, Hyperbloom, or Frina team paired with Neuvillette will do quite well. For the first part of this chamber, this boss has a variety of attacks. You'll definitely want to take into account its little openings of vulnerability, and because there are so many attack patterns, I'll show them on screen. Also, let's say thank you to my Yelan, who suffered quite a bit just to get all these attack patterns.
Take it easy. Stand with me. Here comes the catch. Our bond is strong.
The Thunder Manifestation fight is very straightforward, but very movement-heavy battle, as you will need to dash forward, dodge targeted AoEs, and chase after its rotating attack, after its enhanced state. If you have certain shielders like Zhongli or range characters like Yoimiya, you can totally neglect this aspect. Just make sure to always stay close to the Thunder Manifestation, and the best time to strike at it would be at the very beginning of the fight, where you can bring your single target carries to easily bring down its HP before it becomes a hot mess.
Silence.
This chamber has 3 waves consisting of a big clockwork mecha and ruined guards. Because there are 3 waves, time will be your biggest enemies. So when the last wave arrives, try to group them together first so you can make sure your attacks hit both ruined enemies, saving you a significant amount of time.
I'll settle this.
Geo enemies appear in this chamber, and the biggest annoyance with them is being their Geo shields. But if you have characters like Zhongli or Claymore characters, or characters with heavy hitting attacks like Lee's charged attacks, this should be a non-issue. These enemies are relatively easy, they don't do too much, but you should know that if you don't have anyone to group them together, you should use your own character movement to force them to come together. Grouping the big enemies together will be the key to completing this series of waves quickly. The Hydro Chalupa boss is a permanent Hydro status which will let you proc bloom related reactions and vaporize consistently without the need of a Hydro character. If you need to change your team comp for this chamber only, swap out your Hydro character. Watch out for the little tulpas and immediately shift your focus on them as they can be a hindrance. They will boost the boss's damage, but if you have a Dendro character, one tick of their attack will immediately kill it.
The Temple of Wisdom. Grow, grow, grow. Stand with me. I'll settle this. Committed to memory.
The last chamber has 2 pairs of enemies on 2 ways. Like the strategy before, group the enemies together first using your movement or your burst. Watch out for those Thunder Law Trolls as their dash and smash attacks can easily one-shot your carry. They also stutter pretty badly. During the second wave, both Eremites will spawn 2 summons. When that happens, focus on killing their summons as it will deal a percentage of damage to the Eremite summoners and temporarily make it so that they can't move.
The eternal oasis at long last.
And there you go, we've officially cleared the entire abyss. Hopefully this helps you all, and I'll see you next time.